presence over and over. I invite presence, being present here and now, over and over as a practice in my life. So inviting you to be here.
Could be louder.
Could be louder? Okay, I'll get closer to my, how's that? Good?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. If anybody can't hear, please let me know. Shiviti will be repeated. The word ahava is love, and that's really why we're here today, for the love of Robert and Jeffrey, for the love of Les, for the love of Edie, for the love of this family. So we'll sing this word ahava, and I'll sing it and you'll repeat it after me. Ahava, 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 ahava. There's a season set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven. Some of you may know this famous chapter from Ecclesiastes, an old ancient book of the Bible, that says a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for planting and a time for uprooting the planted, a time for slaying and a time for healing, a time for tearing down and a time for building up, a time for weeping, a time for laughing, a time for wailing and a time for dancing, a time for throwing stones and a time for gathering stones, a time for embracing and a time for shunning embraces, a time for seeking and a time for losing, a time for keeping and a time for discarding, a time for ripping, just as we just ripped and rent our ribbons, our Kriya ribbons for mourning, and a time for sewing. How do we stitch back together after loss, right? A time for silence and a time for speaking, which makes me think about our role here as supporting mourners. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But really, our job is to sit and not speak, but to listen to the mourners for what they need. A time for loving and a time for hating. A time for war, hopefully, and time for peace. So today, my name is Naomi Les, by the way, and I'm one of the co-founders of Jeffrey's spiritual community, Lab Shul. And I had the privilege and pleasure of getting to know Jeffrey's mom and Robert's mom, Edie. And I believe I met your dad one time, if I remember correctly. And I'm sad to be here today, that this is why we're gathered. But I'm also grateful and humbled that I get to be with the two of you today to help you with this really difficult task. And what I mentioned to Robert is this is actually the biggest mitzvah you can do. It's true, it's the highest mitzvah is to bring somebody to their final resting place, because it is the mitzvah that cannot be repaid. And so these amazing two sons are here to do that today. So today we'll have a short ritual. We'll share a little bit about Les and the life he lived and what we want to hold up and remember. We'll hear a little bit from Jeffrey. customary to recite Psalm 23 at a Jewish funeral. And then we will allow Les's body to be escorted to the place in the mausoleum where he will be interred. We will sit tight here while that happens, and then we'll finish the ritual at the site in this building. We don't have to walk anywhere, just down 2 floors, up 2 floors, up 1 floor. And we'll conclude our service there with the mourners' prayers, just to kind of give you the lay of the land, so to speak, as we head into rituals. And rituals are what makes life meaningful and makes death meaningful. And if we don't stop and pause, then grief can actually grow, right? So we want to invite ourselves to ground, to feel the earth solid under our feet, to breathe, and to begin. So when we gather to remember someone, it's natural to think about big moments in their life. But with Les, it feels more appropriate to remember something quieter. The thousands upon thousands of ordinary moments that added together make for an extraordinary life. And now, Les wasn't necessarily an especially emotional man, didn't wear his heart on his sleeve per se. I believe he loved through responsibility. I believe he loved through showing up, through working hard, and through making sure the people he cared about were taken care of. And to understand that, it helps to know from where he came. Les grew up in Gravesend, Brooklyn, I think on Ocean Parkway, if I remember correctly, and with a father who, let's just say, was larger than life, a charismatic entrepreneur who took big risks to establish himself beyond being the immigrant from Poland. And he wanted to live loudly and big, and sometimes, unfortunately, to the pain and struggle of his family. Les watched all that, and he quietly made a different choice. He chose stability. He decided that his own family would always know that they were cared for. He wanted to be a provider, a dependable husband, a present father, and a good citizen. He wasn't interested in making waves or chasing excitement. He found dignity in being what he often was, a hard worker who helped everything around him function. I think, Jeffrey, you mentioned like a cog in a wheel that really helped the thing move, right? He loved his work, and his work reflected who he was, whether he was selling eyeglasses frames or helping couples prepare for weddings or selling cleaning products or any extra jobs that he would take on to support the family. He did every task with care and without complaint. He was up before dawn, often leaving for work at 4 or 5 in the morning. And he didn't retire until he was 81 years old. That wasn't because he had to. It was because he wasn't doing that because he had to. It was because work and providing for his family gave him a sense of purpose. His coworkers respected him. The people who worked for him loved him. Almost everyone who met Les liked him. What more could you ask for? Everything he did, though, was ultimately for family. When money was tight, he sacrificed. He wanted his sons to have opportunities that he may not have had. Vacations were scarce, security mattered. Giving his children a better life mattered. And Les, though steadfast, did have the capacity to grow. And I'm thinking in particular about what Jeffrey shared with me about how your dad fully showed up to accept who you were. He did the work to do that. And of course, no story about Les can be told without talking about Dee Dee, right? They met on a blind date in 1958, okay, all right? And thanks to Aunt Judy, who I know will be watching this later, Aunt Judy, you later said that the moment they laid eyes on each other, you knew that they would marry, and you were right. And they were together for 54 years. And Edie anchored him, right? I see some nods on that. Edie anchored him. She brought him out into the world. Together they built a life filled with shared adventures and friendships and simple joys. Les adored her completely, and he took wonderful care of her, giving her everything he could. And she loved him because she recognized what everyone else eventually came to know. He was handsome, yes, that clearly passed down the generations. But most importantly, he was deeply good. His values weren't something he talked about, he lived them. And together in their later years, he and Edie traveled. I feel like possibly antique shopping, I heard that, and built special friendships with a couple they met on a cruise, Al and Gail. And after years of struggle, he was able to finally enjoy the fruits of a lifetime of hard work. So as I learned about Les from Robert and Jeffrey, one phrase kept coming into mind: steadfast and true. Now, these words may not sound flashy in a world that can always, often celebrate ambition and attention and achievement above all else. But they describe something far rarer. He didn't need recognition. He didn't seek applause. He simply tried every day to be a good husband, a good father, a dependable co-worker, and an honest man. And he succeeded. Les lived an honest path. His legacy isn't found in wealth or titles. It lives in the family that he provided for, the colleagues who respected him, and the quiet example he leaves behind. And in a world where steadfastness can feel increasingly rare, Les reminds us that there is profound greatness in simply being true. May we honor him not only by remembering him, but by living a little more like he did, with quiet integrity, unwavering devotion, and a heart that loved not through words alone, but through a lifetime of faithful action. May his memory be a blessing. So I want to, you can say amen, absolutely, for that, absolutely. Oh, Jeffrey, I want to invite you up. I think you have something prepared to say.
Well, I have to say, you took a lot of notes, and that was one of the best recounting of someone's life. Almost everything I wanted to say
Oh, no.
was
And
in
then,
there.
did I, oh, okay.
You upstaged me.
I should have let you go first.
Lady first.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine.
We want to hear it more than once.
I mean, I could go through it, but a lot of it is, just another homily to my dad. He was born in 1936, long time ago for all of us. He was a good man, he had principles. He didn't believe in, he liked to be a good, normal member of society, unlike me. He didn't believe in asking difficult questions or kicking beehives, just contributing to the common good as best he could. He was a good husband, a good father, and he took his perceived responsibilities very seriously. As Naomi said, my earliest memories of him were him coming home from work at, 5, 6 o'clock, and then getting into a new outfit and going out and doing his moonlighting job, whatever it was, selling bridal packages or Amway, or I'm not even sure what he did, but back in the 70s, the very early 70s, when they were just a young couple trying to, raise 2 kids, in an expensive world. And it sounds a little corny, but with that work, he was able to bring our family from a struggling family into a middle-class family, if it really existed, and it did probably when we got there. He was able to do that with his hard work and determination, and he created a comfortable life for all of us. I'm very happy for that. I mean, we didn't always see eye to eye. My life was lived pretty differently than my dad. I danced to a drum beat that only I could hear. I was distinctly out of step with normal society, and it made him uncomfortable from the beginning. I mean, I remember a couple of times when my father was like, let's play ball, and I'm like, I want to be a rock star. I don't want to be a baseball star, or whatever. It was like one of those kind of things. And, you know, I think at some point he was like, where did I go wrong? Okay, like maybe parents eventually say that about every kid for a minute. Unorthodox behavior just was not his thing. But over the years, I'm proud to say that we learned to respect each other in a big, big way. He saw that there's a million ways to get things done on earth, you know, like one attitude or another, or orthodox or unorthodox. I got things done, he got things done, and we learned to respect each other, you know? And today, more than ever, I've learned to appreciate something about the way he lived his life, too. You know, I always thought it was a little too soft and a little too easy and a little too whatever, but the only problem is suddenly he's not there to discuss the realizations with him. He was known to be calm, caring, and patient man by people who are not in the family. He was incredibly loyal, and he and my mother spent more than 56 years together through thick and thin. They built a home together. They accompanied each other probably on every vacation of their entire lives. That's the kind of level of loyalty. He did anything in his power to make sure that she and their two children could live their absolute best lives. And by his own standards, as you said, he was extremely successful by the standards that he set. Towards the end of his life, he spent a lot more time at home. It was a challenge to get him to come out and have a meal with me or a barbecue at Coco's house, you know, that was nearby. Throughout his illnesses and his doctor visits, he didn't complain much to us. You know, he just opted out of unnecessary social interactions so that he didn't have to complain, so that he didn't have to have other people watching him suffer in any way. He was fiercely independent. He drove himself everywhere, almost until the very last day. But for sure, we saw him suffering the ravages of old age in his mind, body, and spirit. He started to say, I love you, to me a lot more in this past month. It wasn't one of the things my father, like wearing his heart on his sleeve. And I took note of that. I was pretty surprised. He was overly appreciative every time I came to visit or brought him to a doctor's appointment, which really was only once lately. And I wish I had done 10 times more. I wish I had visited more. I wish I had called more. I wish I listened more closely. You know, he deserved much more from me. He earned it in every way. I have to say that I'm very grateful that my brother Robert was there, living in the house with him until the very last day on earth. He truly did 10 times more than I did, and he was there for Dad throughout all the incremental aging, stages and ailments, and I thank him for all the comfort that he gave to my father, just even to have a loving son nearby. So what does it mean for me and Robert to become orphans in this world? I'm only just beginning to contemplate that now. So many shared memories and so much ancestral knowledge dies with my father. But it cheers me up knowing that he was proud of Robert and I for being good people that he successfully brought into the world. After all, I am proudly programmed with 47.62% of his DNA, according to 23andMe. I'm very grateful for my luck of the womb, where I was born. I couldn't have been born to a better family who loved and cherished us kids. couldn't have been born in a more interesting time than 1965. This has been an amazing period of time to have one's life. But here in the present, I have lost my screen. I'm grateful for the opportunity to stand here with friends and family of the Hurant clan. I'm grateful for the lessons that I learned regarding our earthly mortality over the past few months. Because watching your parent age out, as we all know, a lot of people I know in this room are in that place, you know, it's a lesson also in who you will be and how you will get through it. And I feel like I've learned a lot. And it's only, you know, my father's really only 28 years older than me or something like that, which feels like a very short period of time, all things being equal. But we were blessed with 89 years of Les's company. Not me, I wasn't there the whole time, but somebody was. And I wish him an eternal and blissful peace now that he's finally reunited with my mother in the afterlife.
We are all in agreement that that was absolutely you, and not my eulogy. That was yours. Yeah. So, friends, we're heading into a moment where Les's body will be taken to his final resting place. I'm going to recite Psalm 23, which is a psalm. I don't have it here for you. It's not on here, so those pieces we'll take later. But I'll share with you, it is a psalm that is well known to folks because it is the psalm that says, it's very theological, but it says that may the soul of my loved one be wrapped up in the wings of Shekhinah, of the divine presence. But even though I walk through, as we know this line, the valley of the shadow of death, do not fear, for I'm with you in your presence. And that may that grace and love and compassion be with me in the house of the divine for all of my days. So I'm just going to make eye contact with Bill to say, as I'm saying this psalm, we're going to invite the personnel to come and take Les's body, and I'll invite everyone to rise as I sing this psalm, and then we can proceed. So I'll invite everyone to rise.